class, and welcome to week 2. This week's project is the geometric design silhouette. So for this one, you're going to need whichever background you want with whichever watercolor technique you can choose. I've chosen the one where you use the straw and you blow the paint to create those firework images. That's the one I've chosen, but you can choose any of the other techniques you want to make your background this week. You will also need for this project a pencil, your glue stick, a ruler, your sheet that looks like this that I've emailed to you guys, and you need those shapes cut out, and I already have mine cut out, scissors, a scrap piece of paper so that we can lay our design on it so we can make sure that we're laying everything in the correct place, and you'll need your black paper. So the first thing that you'll need to do for this project is make your paper, this paper, you want 1/3 of this paper. So I'm going to measure it. So my paper is 12 inches, and 1/3 of 12 is 3. I mean, 1/3 of 12 is 4, excuse me. So I'm going to go over to my 4-inch mark spot on my ruler. So I'm lining it up, the 0 with the edge of my paper over here, and I'm going to go over to the 4 inches and I'm going to make a mark, just a little tally like that. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see, I just put that little, if it will come in, little mark right there at the top of my paper. And then I'm going to bring my ruler down. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. So I'm going to line my 0 up to the edge of the bottom of my paper, and I'm going to come over to the 4 inches, and I'm going to put a little tally there. And then I'm going to turn my paper so I can connect with my ruler. I'm going to put my ruler on one of my marks, one of those 4-inch marks, line the ruler up with the side of my pencil, and line it up with that mark at the top of my paper. And then I'm just going to draw a line just like that. Now I'm going to cut the paper right along that line. And now you can set that extra piece of construction paper and your ruler aside. So now if you look, this fits really nicely right into the center of your watercolor background. So now I'm going to take my shapes that I've cut out, and I'm going to lay them out onto my square, and I'm going to trace them. So I think I'm going to put my circle up here, and I want to so that's the thing that I did. I folded them in half so that I had the line down the middle. So I'm going to line that center line up with the edge of my paper. So you see how the center line is lined up with the edge of the paper, top and bottom. And you're going to trace that half of the circle onto your black paper. Okay. So now I have half of my circle traced. You're going to take your other smaller circle and fold it in half. Then you're going to open it up, and you're going to lay that center line, and you're going to line it up with the top and bottom on that edge of the paper. So it's a straight line all the way down. And try to judge to get it in the center. It's okay if it's not quite like top and bottom. You want the same amount here as down here. And if it's a little off, that's okay. So now I'm going to trace this circle. Okay. So now you should have 2 circles traced that look like that, or whatever shape you chose. You can do it with any of the shapes. I'm just showing you how. Now I think I'm going to pick my triangle. And I've lost my smaller triangle, but it's still going to work, and I'll show you how to make it work. I'm going to put this triangle this way at the top. So I folded it in half. And I'm going to lay it where it edges, where the end of the fold lines up with the edge of the paper, and the top of the fold lines up with the edge of the paper up there. And open it up, oops, and trace that shape. Now, if you have your smaller triangle, you're going to take the smaller triangle and do it exactly the way that we did the smaller circle. Since I do not have my smaller triangle, I'm just going to move mine and try to match it where there's the same amount of space here as there is there, and trace the edge of that same triangle. It will work better with this smaller triangle, but in case you lose yours. So now I have a circle and a triangle traced onto my paper. Now I think I'll do the star. And the star is a little bit easier because you really don't have to fold this one in half. What I do with this one is I put the point with the edge of my paper and the center of the bottom with the edge of my paper. So when that's lined up, that's in the center of your star. And it doesn't matter which way you have these because the star is the same. The triangles, the points are the same size on all of them. So now I'm going to trace that half of my star. Or whatever shape you're using. Remove that one, and I'm going to take my smaller one and I'm going to trace or line up the same way I did, trying to keep as much space on this part as that part, right? In those, the point is lined up on here and the center point is lined up at the bottom. And I'm going to trace half of the star. Okay. So now I have 3 shapes with a larger shape and a smaller shape. Then you're just going to put your shapes any way you want to. You can do the square. With the square, you could do it as a diamond if you wanted to, or you could fold it in half and do the square shape like this, or you could turn it, and I think I'm going to do it this way this time. Put one corner lined up to that edge and the bottom corner lined up to the edge, and oops, trace that half of the square onto your paper. And then if you do it like that, you're going to take your smaller one and line up those points, those angles, with the edges of your paper. And I'm going to slide it down a little. I'm off some. There we go. And trace that one. So now I have a diamond on one side. Then I think I'm going to come down over here and do another circle. So I'm going to line my circle up down here. And you guys pick whatever shapes you want and just do it the same way. Oops. Until you filled in your entire piece of black, well, not your entire piece of black paper, but the edges of it anyway. And I think I'm going to do another star at the bottom right here. Then once we've gotten all of our shapes traced onto the black paper, we are going to put our black square or the black rectangle back into the middle of our background, and I will show you that. We're going to do that so that we make sure everything lines up properly, and we're going to trace it. So there, now I have a good portion of the edges of my rectangle with shapes on it. I'm going to take all of my shape collection here and I'm going to put it to one side. If you have a paper clip, that's what I used. I just put it all together. I put my paper clip on it so I didn't lose my pieces, so I could make another one if I wanted to, and set them aside. And then I'm going to lay this in the middle of my background. And you can measure it to where it's exactly in the center, or you can just eyeball it and just kind of guess. And then you're going to lightly trace your square with your pencil. Do it lightly, don't do it dark, onto your background. And it is hard. I keep missing the edge. My pencil keeps going on top of my paper, but that's okay. Just take your time, do it slowly, do it lightly so that it doesn't show up when we're finished. One more side to do. Oops. Of course, I got it off, so now it's not in there all the way, the right way. There we go. So now you have the square in the middle of your watercolor background. And those lines are not going to be very visible once we put this down, because we don't want to glue it down yet. We want to wait until we've cut it out and everything's lined up properly. So now we're going to take our scrap paper and we're just going to trace that shape. It doesn't have to be perfect in this because this is just our guide scrap paper. So I'm just going to trace my rectangle onto this. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect on this. This is just helping us make sure we lay out our design properly in the right place before we glue everything down, because we don't want to accidentally turn a part of the star the wrong way so it doesn't line up on our background. So now that we've gotten everything drawn and prepared, we are going to start cutting things out. Okay, so go ahead and take time to cut. Okay, let me show you for getting ahead of myself here. So I'm going to cut out the outside of this triangle first. I'm going to leave the inside in for the moment, and I'm going to cut this outside, the bigger piece, out. Oops, I didn't go all the way down. Okay. So now I have the triangle and the square and my rectangle that look like this. Now I'm going to line my rectangle up on the inside of that square. Then I'm going to cut out the inside square. And when you do it, be careful that you don't lose that outside edge. So I'm cutting it. I'm just going to let that piece drop straight down. If it does, I don't know, it might not. Okay. So now I have the triangle that's in two pieces that look like this. I'm going to bring it over here. I'm going to lay it right there. I'm going to take the piece that that's this inside piece, and I'm going to lay it like this. So this piece and this piece are going to stay there, just like that. And I'm picking this up, because that is how we are going to lay them out on our watercolor paper in just a moment. Now I'm going to cut out each shape just like that. So I'm going to start with my star now. I'm going to do my star now, and I'm going to cut out the outside shape, the larger of the two shapes. Okay. So I'm going to carefully lay this back down without moving that because I don't want to, get those in the wrong place. And I'm going to trim out the inside of this star. So there's the inside of my star. And I'm going to hold those two pieces together like I didn't cut them apart. And I'm going to make sure that this fits inside there. So then I'm going to lay it down, lay the center of my star down, pick this this piece up, flip it, and lay it down on the outside of that square the rectangle that I traced. And then I'm going to pick up my piece of paper again, and I'm going to do that for each of these shapes. You cut out the larger one first, you lay it down, and then you cut out the inside piece. So cut out the large circle, carefully lay this one back down, cut out the inside circle, and try to hold on to both pieces so that it stays, so it doesn't flip. Lay it back into your shape that you cut out, line the inside piece up, and flip that outside over. So then you have your shapes like this. And you're going to do that with all of your shapes, exactly like I just showed you. Okay, so finish cutting those out, and then I will show you how to glue them down. So now you should be at this place where you have your shapes on your scrap square, your scrap paper with your rectangle drawn in it. And then you have this piece. So if I laid this in, it's going to look like that. So I'm going to take this piece right here, and I'm going to take it and put it right into my the rectangle that I traced earlier. So I'm going to slide this out of the way so that you can see this one fully. Okay. So keep this one exactly like that, and we're going to glue this piece down inside of our background. So go ahead and glue. Be careful with the glue. You don't need too much. You just need enough to hold it in place. Doesn't have to be big blobs of glue. And I know sometimes that happens because we want to make sure that it sticks, but you really just need a little bit. Just enough to go right up to the edges to make sure that it's going to stay down. So I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to do my best to line up the black edges with my pencil lines. And it may be off just a little bit, and if it is, that's okay, because you can go back and gently erase those pencil lines. And I mean just gently. Okay. So now that's laid down. Now, we are going to slowly take the inside piece of one of our shapes, and that's going to go just like that. Actually, we're going to do the outside piece. I'm sorry. Leave your inside pieces, pick up your outside piece, So I'm going to slide it off of my table the same way that it is laying. I'm just going to pick it up just like that. So it's the exact same way that it was laying on the paper. So, you know, I did, it was like this inside. I flipped it and I've left it just like that. So now I'm going to flip it over and put the glue on the side of the paper that was down on the white paper. Okay. Now I'm going to bring it over here and I'm going to line that edge up to that little point, and I'm going to line this one up right along that pencil line that I drew. And there is that first part. So see how it looks like it connects? That's what you want to do. You want to make sure that they're lining up and connecting right there. Now I'm going to take my circle, the inside piece, just like this, flip it over, put the glue on that part, and then I'm going to line it up on that line, oops, matching the points with the points of that outer circle. So now I have a straight line. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. So I'm going to pick up, leaving it with, you know, oops, that's staying there, picking it up like this, because remember I laid it down, it's like that, and I flipped it over. I'm going to flip it like this and put the glue on that part of it. Just a little, we don't need a lot. And then I'm going to take it and line it up with this pencil line. On the top and the bottom of that cutout shape and push it down. Oops. Okay, so there's our second shape. Now I'm going to take the inside star and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to glue this side of it. And then line it up with that pencil line and the other star's edges. Okay. I'm going to pull this over so we can see both together. There we go. And I'm going to do the same thing for each of these shapes. Take the outside edge, pull it exactly the way it was laying, flip it over, and put glue on that side. Flip it back exactly the same way that it was and line it up with the pencil and the edges. So I'm going to take it like this, flip it like that, put the glue on there, flip it back, and then line it up with the edge of the paper. Okay. This is why we laid it out like this first, because when you're, if you just put them all in a big pile or to the side, it gets a little confusing because you might accidentally flip like the inside of this triangle that way, and that's not going to go in properly. So you want to make sure you have them the right direction every time. So I'm going to pick up the outside, flip it like this in my hand, and then glue. And then it's going to go right here and lay down and match up edges. Then the inside triangle. Okay, So I'm going to do the rest, and then you guys finish yours. You glue the outside piece first, and then the inside piece. And then you'll have your finished geometric shape silhouette collage picture.